Barack Obama made a little bit of a statement about the negative parts of the left or the Democratic Party and kind of what people call woke individuals. There are 1,000 different meanings of that, and people take that a million different ways. So I use that in the loosest terms possible, and I try to stray away from the word because, again, it just means nothing when everyone has a different definition of it. But we will discuss a little bit further after watching this.
Not being a buzzkill, right?
That's a lesson for the Democratic
Party. Yeah, and sometimes Democrats are, right? It's like, sometimes, people just want to not feel as if they are walking on eggshells, and they want some acknowledgement that life is messy and that all of us, at any given moment, can, say things the wrong way, make mistakes. Michelle.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I wanted to do this story, and am doing this story because I think a lot of times when people give their political view, one of the first thing, if they're not real focused on the issues that I find to be crucial, they lead with kind of cultural things, right? The social dynamic within the country and what bothers them, and that's what drives their political beliefs. And a lot of times I try to encourage people to look past just the last person you interacted with on Twitter and look into what are the kind of systemic and deep challenges we're facing, and which party is trying to address those, and which candidates are actually fighting for the legitimacy of our democracy or these rights or economic prosperity. But I get, and I don't want to take away from the fact that day to day you do interact a lot with the culture in which politics is kind of injected, right? So I want to give a little bit of a fair shake to people who say, listen, I like this policy that was passed by the Democrats or this thing that the left pushes for, and I also believe in universal health care, but it bothers me that it seems they're obsessed with being, I hate all these terms, but politically correct or woke or on and on we go. Because I get if you run in certain circles, that probably gets really annoying. I get that. And maybe me as someone who has a very particular set of friends and social life, and I don't drown myself in the Twitter conversations, doesn't understand the aggravation of someone constantly saying that you have to say something correct or constantly saying that you're horrible for this thing you said way back when or whatever it is. And so we can't forget what the crucial issues are. We can't forget that regardless of what you think of all of that, we have a movement that's literally breaking down our democracy. And not to mention that the Republican Party for a very long time has not fought for the economic and beyond well-being of American citizens broadly. And that is true, and that needs to be focused on. But also day to day, I get that people care about the social things. And there are some people on the left, admittedly, who are very intolerant of people who don't line up with their culture. So we'll continue a little further on this discussion, but first looking at the liberal host on, not her, not Janine Bureau, but the person that's about to cut to, on Fox News talking about Barack Obama saying this.
This is for the birds. But James Carville did a long time ago, but nobody seemed to follow him. Why?
Well, James Carville has given no Fs for decades. That's his brand, and that's what he's really good at. And obviously was seminal in an incredibly successful 1990s and getting us through a huge wipeout of losing the House and then Contract for America and all of it. People do listen to James Carville. They don't necessarily have the cable news pundit jobs, right? They're not the ones who are in your face all day. They're not on the editorial page of the New York Times, but they're out there. And what President Obama is doing that's different than other people who criticize it, he's criticizing liberals. He's not talking about conservatives. He's talking about liberals who make it impossible for you to breathe, right? This is the whole, the term Latinx, which 3% of Hispanics in this country actually use. I've been in so many meetings looking at PowerPoint presentations, and they say, and to reach the Latinx community, I work in research. Who is that, right? What is that? And that's liberal on liberal problems. If you want to say whatever you want about Republicans, try to make it as polite as possible. I get it. But some of this woke stuff is alienating, I'd say, moderate to conservative Democrats, certainly independents. And I'm sure that that loops back to what's going on with independent women. And then moderate Republicans who do hate Donald Trump.
Yeah, we'll stop her there. But again, I want to highlight that the word woke has a gazillion different meanings. And some people understand that the way that certain people on the right use it is literally like ever bringing up the fact that there's problems in our country in relation to black people not being treated properly. You're woke. Okay, that's not what we're talking about. We do need to discuss those problems, and discussing those problems isn't being woke, okay? Or advocating for people in the LGBTQ community is not woke, right? But the obsession with maybe relatively small parts of these conversations and being very intolerant of people who maybe haven't even learned about aspects of this yet, I think is what many, at least people on the left, refer to as woke, and maybe what Barack Obama is calling out there. And it is true that there's a walking on eggshells vibe around certain people within the Democratic Party or the left liberals, for sure, because you feel as if, oh, I could say something wrong and be perceived as blank. I could not use the correct terminology that's very new, that's always changing, and people are going to think that I don't care about these issues. And that's aggravating. And for someone like me, you could give me 1,000 enraging liberals and I would still support the Democratic Party in this election, and I would still understand that that doesn't represent the broader progressive movement, right? A lot of people don't do that, though. They do base their political reality based on what they're seeing right here. So if they interact with 1,000 annoying liberals, they're going to think that being a liberal is the aggravating part. Even though when you look at what does the current Republican Party stand for and the Democratic Party stand for, it is so clear which one is actually advocating and working on behalf of people in some manner. The Democratic Party isn't doing it enough, but in some manner. So I get it. And then I don't really want to get to a specific issue. Like, here's an example of someone on the left being overly quote unquote woke. Okay? Just because no need to spark enragement in a particular person about a particular thing right now. But you all are aware of the times in which this goes a little overboard. And I do know within conversations about, let's say, LGBTQ advocacy, right? Which is 100% something we should all be doing. There are people who haven't yet learned about some of the new terminology or some of the new concepts, at least new in the sense of being publicly spoken about and aware within the political moment that we're in now. And I've seen within my own life people kind of not use the correct terminology or kind of ask some questions like, wait, that seems, this thing a little weird. I've never heard of it. I always thought of it this way, and get torn to shreds. And that's not necessary. It's totally fine to say, listen, I can tell now you're not trying to understand, you're not trying to learn, you're just trying to be hateful, and then shut them out. That's totally fine. But if you can tell someone's trying to learn or understand and they're just ignorant in a way, or maybe not fully on board with a particular thing, be patient and compassionate to the fact that everyone's coming from different places and different spaces, and their lack of perfectly aligning with the culture that you're in or that I'm in doesn't mean that they're a horrible, terrible person that needs to be screamed at. So again, the reason why I don't talk that much about this subject is I really think this is a tiny part of what I consider to be the progressive movement. I think most people genuinely want to fix broken systems, want to advocate for groups that are experiencing horrible injustices in our country, want to try to improve the economic well-being of individuals, give people the necessary healthcare needs, and not burden them massively financially because of that, want to increase people's wages and give them more. All these things, I think most progressives, that's what they care about, and maximizing equality in our country and all of that stuff. But those who get the biggest microphone often are the most annoying. And so making it clear to people, I don't stand for that, but you also shouldn't define your whole political identity based on a few people on Twitter, right? You really shouldn't, because there are more important issues at hand. And generally, the advocacy that's being done about these things is so just and is so correct, and we should all fight on behalf of those movements, even if some people who want a little cause overdo it from time to time. Let me know what you think about all that in the comments.